sports, politics, life. 360 Document Solutions presents Kevin Keatsman Has Issues online at 360documentsolutions.com.
One sheet of paper. I think I've mentioned before, we use one sheet of paper to do the podcast each day. I've got some notes written down here, and it is packed. I've never seen so much black on this white sheet of paper and so little white space. So we're going to jump right into it, and as we're getting ready to start, we get the news that the Prime Minister of England has stepped down, United Kingdom, Liz Truss, after just 6 weeks. She's a conservative that wanted lower taxes and a growing economy, and she faced, from day one, she faced all kinds of headwinds and resentment from people in her own party. They've been after her for 6 weeks. She is now the shortest tenured prime minister in the history of England. I am not certain of all the inner workings and how it works. She was selected in a parliamentary process, not a voter process. So the Conservatives had control of Parliament and putting her in charge. So my assumption is they'll put somebody else in charge. I don't know how it all works, but this kind of fits into what we're doing here in the United States and what's happening with our elections just a couple of weeks away now, 2.5 weeks away. And where people on earth are right now, they are hurting economically. Inflation is global. We're on the backside of a pandemic that has people angry and out for change to begin with. I think there is a correlation between this and our elections, okay? I know she just took over, but it's pretty clear the people in England, the United Kingdom, have said, we're mad as hell. We don't care. 6 weeks, we're done with you. We're done with you. You're not fixing anything. Inflation's out of control. We're worse off than we were. This is one angry planet right now. Humans are angry all over this earth. So that is just in. All right, we start with good news in the U.S. as we're getting closer and closer to the elections. We have seen a wave of Democrats in the last couple of weeks that are coming out and speaking and saying, boy, this doesn't look good, and our strategy as a party is terrible. There are those that are saying, hey, we peaked early in July and August. We were doing really well in the polls. We know July and August polls don't mean anything. And we here at KKHI ignored all the polling that said, look, the Democrats are gaining. They're passing these things. It's working. Nobody cares. We know people are angry out here. We know people didn't really like lockdowns and mandates. We know people don't like high gas prices. We know people don't like going to the grocery store right now because they can't buy the food that they used to buy with what they have to spend. We just know these things. We know that people who are doing okay, who are upper middle class maybe, are going to the grocery store going, holy smokes. My mom said to me yesterday, she loves this 45-calorie bread. I said, I eat the same stuff, the same bread. It's a wheat bread. It's a great product. It's wonderful for sandwiches. It's tasty. It's soft. There's a lot of good things about it. She goes, it was $4.50 for this loaf of bread. And I said, well, that's terrible because I know it didn't cost that. However, I don't know how many slices are in a loaf, but the stuff lasts forever now. You know, bread used to go bad in like a week. How is it that my bread lasts at least 3 weeks now in the bag? I said, yeah, but you got 3 weeks worth of sandwiches there. You don't have to buy it every week. She has a ham sandwich for lunch every day. My mom's a creature of habit. A lot of us are. And I said, that stinks. That's bad. I get you. I get it. But still, there's a big bag of bread right there that's going to last you 3 weeks for $4 and something that, in the grand scheme of things globally, is probably still a pretty good thing. But she's noticing. I've noticed. I've not really been a big price watcher my whole life, but I'm watching on everything now. There are certain things that are pretty much the same price everywhere. But as we go by the things that we need, there are choices to be made. We spend more time grocery shopping at Walmart than ever before. Their prices are lower than the grocery stores. It's easy to spot. So we see this taking place everywhere. Barack Obama has talked about the woke culture, the mistakes that they've made, overplaying their hand with the woke culture. There are television network pundits out there now saying a red wave could be coming, that the economy fundamentals are not good, inflation is high, Biden will not even admit that there's inflation. Hey, listen, this Liz Truss over in England, she admitted everything she was doing. She came out and was honest and said, here's what we're doing. We're going to do it this way. And people are like, you can't do that. You can't do that. And she says, here's how we're going to do it. She owned up to everything, and 6 weeks later, she's out. So ultimately, does Biden have it wrong? He just sits there and lies to you. He says there's zero inflation. He says gas has always been $7 a gallon in California. I mean, he says things that are provably untrue. Okay? And I don't call the man necessarily a liar. I don't think that's right, because he knows you wouldn't lie to someone if you knew they could very quickly, within like 2 minutes, verify that you're lying. You wouldn't do that. He's a politician. This is their game. He knows there's a certain part of the electorate that will hear what he says or hear the message and never question it. And he knows there's an overwhelming majority of the media that won't question what he says, so they just allow him to say it. So he's been out there doing it. And a former Clinton aide and pollster, we've talked about him a couple of times, named Mark Penn. He was a pollster for Bill Clinton. He was an advisor to the Clintons. He's a Democrat, but he's an old school Democrat. Again, we say this all the time. John Kennedy, the former president, would be a conservative Republican today. Bill Clinton would be maybe Mitt Romney. The closest comparison would be Bill Clinton and Mitt Romney. They'd be kind of the same. He'd be a center of the road Republican. Bill Clinton would be today. He tries occasionally in some of his interviews to sound younger and hipper and cooler, but there are people who've been around forever, like Mark Penn, that say, wait a second, the party has moved with the wackos. Mark Penn has authored a piece at Fox News where he says the wave is coming, and it's very, very red. He writes that inflation, crime, and immigration are the top 3 issues in America, and among likely voters, the GOP has a 15-point lead in those categories. Again, this is not a poll where they ask who you're voting for. They ask what the issues are. Inflation, crime, and immigration are by far the top 3 issues in the United States today, with voters as they head to midterm polls. And he points out the GOP has a 15-point lead among likely voters in those categories. How in the world are Democrats going to win? I think he's right. I have a friend. I mean, this is just polling, right? I don't even believe in the polling. I think it skews low for conservatives. I have a friend who told me yesterday, we were at the Amanda Atkins event. More on that coming up in a little bit. He said he's been polled. He got it through his phone. He got sent a survey. Fill this out. He's in Kansas. It's a Derek Schmidt, Laura Kelly for governor poll. And he filled it out, and the whole way through, he just said undecided, undecided, undecided. What issues are important? You know, he gave a couple of those answers, but they asked him undecided. We're looking at a governor's race in Kansas where what? 12, 13% of the people are undecided? It's pretty obvious they're like my friend. These are conservatives that are lying to the pollster, saying we're not going to tell you anything about who we're voting for. So this stuff's happening everywhere. And Mark Penn has authored this piece. He says, look, when you ask about a specific race, you can't get good information. But he argues when you ask about issues and how you feel about things, people will be honest. They're not afraid to say it. 57% of Americans say they're in worse financial situation this year than last year. Here's the astounding thing that Penn points out. That is more than double the number of people who think they're financially worse off than during the pandemic. When we had people locked down at home, they were not nearly as worried about their financial situation as they are today, now that the pandemic's over. I can't even comprehend that. I mean, people were supposed to be locked down and scared. You were scared for your life over the disease, the virus, whatever. Okay, I got that part, but you're home. You don't know what's happening with your job. People were getting laid off. People were getting fired for not getting shots. Do you remember the mayhem? Do you remember the mayhem of the pandemic and how uncertain everything was? Today, twice as many people are worried about their finances as they were during the pandemic. It's staggering. And maybe they were all just focused in on their health. Maybe. But what a stunning number. 55% of those people blame Biden directly. 42% of them blame Democrats. 42% of them are Democrats that blame Biden. So you can see where the lines are drawn there. And this one is really amazing. 64% of likely voters say that border security, putting criminals in jail, and stopping government overspending appeals to them this election. Those issues are 2/3 issues. Those are Republican, wheelhouse issues. Now, the flip side of this, there's a couple of weird ones that I just don't get. This poll says 58% of Americans approve the student debt bailout. What? I've not heard that at all. I don't feel that at all. And 67% agree with Joe Biden to pardon marijuana possession infractions, arrests, incarcerations, whatever may be the case. But 84% of respondents in America say we are in a recession or there's one starting within the next few months. 84% of Americans agree we're in a recession. So there you have it. Now, what's shocking to me is the only outlier to me in this poll, I get the marijuana thing. Those are minor crimes. I understand how people poll on something like that. I'm stunned by 84% believe we're in a recession. And if they're blaming Biden, the Democrats cannot win in these midterms. But there's a spot that's running all over the country that a listener sent to me yesterday. This is from Ron. He did a great job finding this and sending it to me. This is a television commercial, so you can't see the actors playing the parts. It's 60 seconds long. The first actor is a mechanic, like he's in a garage working on a car. The second one is like a lawn guy. He's cutting grass, he's digging holes, he's fixing fences, things like that. And the last one is a waitress in a diner, and she's pouring coffee, but she has two jobs, and she's working so hard, she's pouring coffee for herself. This is a comedy spot. This works better than the serious spots during an election, in my opinion. It looks funnier when you watch it than it will sound to you, but you're going to understand the tone with the music that this is comedic. This is why I don't believe 58% of Americans approve of student loan debt. If that were the case, this spot would not be airing all over the country. This is a generic spot. This is basically don't vote for Democrats. They're fools. This is making fun of them, which is what we should be doing. We need more humor. We need to make fun of them at every turn because it's comical. We need to point out the absurdity of their positions. And this spot does this. This is an organization called the American Action Network. They have a gazillion dollars, obviously. They're spending that money all over the country, pointing out to people that Joe Biden and the Democrats are absolutely absurd by taking a small little sliver of mostly rich kids, college grads, and paying off their debt. Listen to this.
I spend more time working on these cars than with my own family.
I spend my days digging holes, cutting grass, and sweating.
This is job number 2 today. So my customers aren't the only ones drinking coffee.
I'm breaking my back out here for one reason.
I want to pay off some other guy's debt.
Biden's plan to pay other people's college loans using my tax dollars is a great idea.
Biden's right. You should take my tax dollars to pay off your debts. My family will figure out how to get by with less. What's most important is we spare college graduates from any extra stress.
Want to be a struggling artist? College is on me.
My kids don't need fancy things like school supplies or new shoes.
I work for you, theater major.
This shift is for you, business major. Go buy yourself that new car.
Enjoy your free ride. College is on me.
Tell Congress, stop Biden's bailout for rich kids.
Well, that's how you do it. I mean, that's exactly how you do it. You make fun of it because it's so absurd you can't even rationalize what it is that they're doing. And you can't. So we'll take all the humor we can get during this election and pointing out how absurd the Democrats are. I thought you'd enjoy that. There wasn't a lot of humor. Pete Mundo's a pretty funny guy. He's a morning show host, Mundo in the Morning on KCMO Talk Radio. And he emceed the event last night with Amanda Atkins in Shawnee at Barley's. And it was a really nice turnout. Really nice turnout. Nice people there. Amanda did a nice job. She's not a rah-rah, get you jumping out of your chair, standing on your feet, like we're seeing with some of these others that are doing it. She's not that politician. She's not. She is a lady. She is kind. She is generous. She has all the right ideas. She will be a great representative for District 3 in Kansas. But this event was really, really interesting because as I told Pete afterwards, I said, you know, the only thing about Amanda Atkins is I sat and watched you guys do this program for 40 minutes or however long it was, and she took questions. When Pete was up there and they were up there together, I couldn't help but think to myself, you know, I'd vote for Pete Mundo. You know, that's just kind of how you look at it. So everybody was asking me last night, is she going to win this? Is she going to win it? I said, I'm hopeful, but I'm not overly optimistic. Amanda Atkins is, as we discussed in the interview, if you haven't heard it yesterday, she's Mike Pompeo. In a way, she's Newt Gingrich. She's a lot of people that are conservative that would be, and I mentioned on the podcast, Pompeo and Gingrich would both have been great presidents or would be great presidents. But I don't think they're electable. I think Newt hit a ceiling and wasn't electable to do that. And I don't think Mike Pompeo has a chance in hell of being president of the United States unless he's vice president and the president dies. I just don't see, he's a doer. He's not a politician. Amanda Atkins has been a doer her whole life. She was an executive at Cerner. She's helped run the party in Kansas. She is a doer. Don't get me wrong. She'd be a great congresswoman for us here in District 3. My question is, can she get elected? And, this event didn't do anything to change that. And I've expressed this. I'm a truth teller. I talk about these things. We talked about it on the podcast with her. I think she probably knows. I think politicians know what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, what their limitations are, things of that nature. And so everybody asked me last night, is she going to win? And I said, I'm hopeful, but I'm not overly optimistic. I believe this. I believe if they redrew the voting lines for the district, which they did, in a proper fashion, she will win. But I don't think she's going out this time and doing anything on her own to win it. Look, she's clearly more qualified for the position than almost anybody else that would run. She's wildly qualified for this. She could be tremendous at her job. I got all that. But I honestly believe this. If she wins, I think you or I could have won. And I think there's a lot of Congress seats that are that way. It's funny because, some of these are just landslides. Like the other 3 districts in Kansas aren't even up in play. They're not even in play. It's not like this Jacob Turk runs every year against Emmanuel Cleaver in Missouri. This is the 6th time he's run against Cleaver. Well, he's going to get smoked again. He just keeps coming back and losing, but I love the guy. I'm proud that somebody runs against Cleaver. You're not going to win. Hopefully you can get some people's attention and make a difference somehow, but you're not going to win. There's a lot of Congress races like that. This isn't one of them. Okay, this was an 11-point Democrat win 2 years ago. 11 points. They've redrawn the lines. They've added a couple of counties to the south. They've lopped off part of Wyandotte County. And to me, it was the same 2 candidates, 11 points. How many does she get back on? How many of the 11-point deficit does Amanda Atkins get on her own? How many does she flip? Or how many did they lop off and send elsewhere and bring in Paola, Ottawa, Franklin County, Miami County down there, bring in all those voters that are 75% Trump voters? That's where it is. It was a wonderful event. Pete Mundo does a great job. He's a good friend. And we wish Amanda Atkins absolutely the very best. We appreciate her being on the podcast. If you haven't heard it, it's a good listen. I think you will enjoy it. Give it a listen. Share it with people. Let them know that it's there. And see if it will help motivate them to go vote for Amanda Atkins. We need the vote. We need the donations. She needs everything you can possibly do to help. I describe her as, a lot of people like me, like outsiders, don't really get all, like, who my favorite is this election cycle. It's Carrie Lake, and it's not close. She's the best politician running for any position anywhere in America right now. And she's never run for office. And she's about to become governor of Arizona. That's what I like. That's what I gravitate toward. I gravitated toward Trump. I like the outsiders. I've always liked the outsiders. I do not believe our constitutional republic was designed to have career politicians. I believe it was designed for the people in Washington, D.C. to come from our communities, go represent us for a couple of years, come back, turn it over to somebody else. I don't think the founding fathers ever thought we'd have people like Joe Biden that were there for 60 years or whatever it's been. So I do like outsiders. And Amanda Atkins is not an outsider. She's part of the Republican establishment machine. She is. And she's playing to that. She's trying to play the middle. She's trying to find the independent voters, especially women in Johnson County, Prairie Village, places like that, and change their vote from 2 years ago from Sharice Davids to Amanda Atkins. We'll see. Again, she's not trying to reach me. She's got my vote. She knows she's got my vote. I think she knows she's got your vote if you live in District 3. So we'll see if it works this time as they've redrawn those lines. Oh, they changed the laws in Georgia. Remember this? The Jim Crow laws they were putting in, the voter suppression laws, all this really mean, awful stuff they were doing in the state of Georgia. Remember that? They lost the All-Star game because of it. You folks remember the All-Star game moved from Atlanta to Denver? They moved it because they passed laws about voting security in Georgia that the woke Democrats described as voter suppression and Jim Crow. Voting has been open in Georgia for a few days now. It's awful early, by the way. They have almost a month to vote in Georgia. You want to talk about access? Oh, and they've got a record early turnout. More people voting than ever. Yeah, voter suppression. Uh-huh. It is remarkable how much these people lie and what they do. No, I'm sorry. It is not remarkable that that's what they do. That's who they are. It is remarkable that their lies make a difference. When they talk to you about canceling somebody or being woke or get the jab or the All-Star game's got to move because this is Jim Crow, this is racist, this is voter suppression. When they do that, somehow, some way, they are effective in getting things done. These people got the All-Star game moved out of the state of Georgia, the city of Atlanta, and now it is, once again, it takes 2 seconds on almost everything they do to make it provably false, that they lied. We knew they lied. We read the law. What is it, 26 states, 24 states have new voter laws this time around that they didn't have 2 years ago? We've read all the laws. There's nothing discriminatory about them. There's nothing that says, there's no clause that says, if you're black, we're only going to let you vote for an hour and a half at midnight on a Thursday, 2 weeks before the election, and that's it. Otherwise, your black vote won't get counted. There's nothing like that. That's what they want you to think, is they've got this small little slice of things for black people. By the way, it is also racist and terribly bigoted and just downright immoral and awful when Democrats come forward and say, well, if we have to have an ID and we vote electronically and we have all these other ways, that's not fair to black people. What? What? Black people aren't capable of getting a driver's license? What? Or an ID of some sort? This is not what? All you have to do is go to the post office. You can go to Costco and get a passport card. All you have to do is bring a Social Security number. They'll run you through the computer. They'll find you. It's just absurd. Black people can't get IDs? That's so racist. I can't. On every level, that's awful. That's insulting. That is so lowbrow. These people are so full of it. So Georgia had these voter suppression laws, Jim Crow. And the All-Star game moved. And now they've opened under their new laws, and we've got a record turnout, a record early turnout, which is what it's all about, is access. Do you have access to voting? Well, it seems to me that if Georgia was already open, and there isn't much in Missouri, they don't have a lot of early voting and stuff in Missouri. Kansas, I think, opened today. I think Kansas voting opens today, or it was yesterday. So it's just opened, I think, early voting in Kansas. And it's limited days. It's not every day. It's not 24 hours. It's nothing like that. But Georgia now they got people coming in like crazy, voting early. And they lost the All-Star game over this. Maybe baseball should step up and say, oh, my God, wouldn't it be great if I owned the Braves? I'd be like, I want my All-Star game back. We put a bid together. We spent all this money. We got ready. We built a stadium. I want my All-Star game back. You owe us an All-Star game. If I owned the Braves, I'd be pissed. Look at what's happening. When it's all said and done in 3 weeks, and a record number of Georgians have voted in a midterm election, Major League Baseball has no other option than to put the All-Star game back in Atlanta and admit they were wrong. None. Should absolutely be done. Our question of the week this week comes from Peter Doozy of Fox News. He asked Karine Jean-Pierre, KJP, is that right, KJP? This is just the greatest question I've ever heard. You know, KGP doesn't do very well with the questions when the answers aren't in her booklet in front of her. This didn't get any play because I think the answer was no good. It didn't become a big story. But the point for me is the questions. We're getting great questions now asked of the administration. Oh, by the way, the runner-up question comes from the Daily Caller. The lady from the Daily Caller asked, does the president want more illegal aliens in Delaware? And Corinne Jean-Pierre's response was, I don't even understand that question. Next question. Like, what do you mean you don't understand it? He wants more illegals in the country. Does he want more in Delaware? That's a simple question. You're the spokesperson for the president. Give the answer. I don't even understand the question. Next question. I mean, it's ridiculous. But Peter Doozy had the doozy. Peter Doozy asked her, they were talking about oil prices, and, the administration's been saying the oil companies are gouging. They're profiteering. Prices are too high, all this other stuff, right? Peter Doozy's question, this is a great question. This is just so fundamentally good because it is a question, but it is also him on a soapbox preaching. This is fantastic. Peter Doozy's question, quote, what makes you think oil companies are going to listen to an administration that's trying to put them out of business? That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So Biden thinks the oil companies are going to listen to him and lower prices while he is trying to put oil companies out of business. That's just the greatest question I've ever heard. You know the answer. It was like, flip some notes, try to find an answer. There was no answer for her in the book. What makes you think oil companies are going to listen to an administration that's trying to put them out of business? That's so good. That is so good. That should be in every college journalism classroom today. Today as an example of how to do it. I got an email from my buddy Chris over at bstock.net. He has a large shipment of Samsung refrigerators. This is a doozy at Bstock. This is the 27.8 cubic feet, 4-door French door with the food showcase door that opens up, and then there's the glass, and it's really cool. Stainless steel, has the window in the door. $22.67 at Best Buy, plus delivery and all that other stuff. Bstock, $18.99, and they will deliver it anywhere in the Kansas City metro area. That saves you $368 off the Best Buy price, and they will deliver it included. So we're now talking about, $100 and something for delivery? It's $500 or more savings on brand new. They've got a shipment of Samsung beautiful 4-door French door with food showcase stainless steel refrigerators. It's not just TVs and computers at Bstock. It's all there. 14680 South Flaming Road in Olathe, or check them out online at bstock.net. Fry Orthodontics with 13 locations in our area now, including Lawrence, as they've opened a new branch in Lawrence. If you're thinking about Invisalign, this is the way to go. Nobody understands the treatment better and works you all the way through it more properly than Fry Orthodontics. Braces are still an outstanding option for so many people, but Invisalign can work for you too. They're a little less intrusive. There's fewer visits, all those things. And who does this? Invisalign for the same price as braces. Fry Orthodontics does, online at fryorthodontics.com. Cross Kitchens KC, your remodeler. They love remodeling kitchens. They are outstanding at this. As a smaller company, you get more attention to detail, and your job gets done quicker as they pretty much throw the whole crew at you. When it's your turn, it's your turn. And in they come and out they go. 2 weeks or less, most kitchens. They also love building man caves downstairs in newer homes that have unfinished areas in the basement. They are terrific at that. They'll build you a bar and a little mini kitchen down there and the whole deal and help you with your TV setup. If you would like to discuss this with Tim Cross and his team at Cross Kitchens, just give them a call at 816-898-7047, online at crosskitchenskc.com. And as always, a special shout out to our friends at Window World, the title sponsor of Kevin Keatsman Has Issues. They've been with me for probably 20 years now or more, all the way back in radio. John Gillette and his team at Window World are the best. 4 states they cover here, and they're even into Illinois. So if you listen in Illinois, Window World, it's the same operation. He's now covering many states, John Gillette. He's just grown and grown and grown. They won the J.D. Power Award again for customer satisfaction. That doesn't surprise me. If you call Window World, you're going to be happy with their service. They're simply the best for less. Official windows of the Kansas City Chiefs, online at windowskansascity.com. On to sports and the Kansas City Chiefs. Chiefs play the Niners Sunday. the San Francisco 49ers, I don't mean to laugh. I'm not making fun of, I'm not rooting for injuries, but injuries are part of the game. We know this. Everyone's team at one point or another has been decimated by injuries. Kansas is going through it right now with key injuries. You hate to see that. Chiefs play the Niners this week. San Francisco lists 19 players on their injured list. 19. Last week, during the Atlanta game, they had 11 starters missing at one time. 6 on defense, 5 on offense. Starters. This looks tough for the 49ers Sunday, and it looks like the Chiefs may be catching a break. You have to love this. The Niners have rated very high in team defense this year. They were 4th in the league going into last week, but with a decimated starting lineup on the defensive side of the ball, and a lot of these guys are in question. Maybe they'll only have 3 or 4 out, but they could have 5 or 6 out. They gave up 28 to the Falcons, who are not very good. And 28 for the Falcons is like giving up 42 to the Chiefs. I'm pretty sure. So there it is. I had a discussion on a patron podcast yesterday. Frank Boal joined us for Between the Lines 2.0. If you join as a patron, you get all these extra interviews and segments that we do. And you can get bonus content in the newsletter each and every weekend. It's very easy. On your desktop or laptop, go to kkasissues.com, click on Become a Patron. For $5 a month, you get all the bonus content. That's it. Help support the podcast. You get more material, and I enjoy doing it. Frank Boal was my guest yesterday. We had a great discussion. And if you join today, you get that. You get all the previous podcasts in the library, so you can hear the Frank Boal segment. We talked about a lot of great stuff on the podcast. Media, we talked about Harris Faulkner, who we both worked with. We talked some college football, but we also talked about the Chiefs and the 49ers. And I began by asking him about the improvement on the defensive side of the ball by the Chiefs this year. I think they're more physical, and I think they're better. But I can't give you a metric. I don't know how much better. I just know they're a little bit better. So I asked Frank Boal, how we think the Chiefs defense is better this year. How much better is the Chiefs defense?
Oh, that's really a good question. If once you get everybody back healthy, I think we'll have a better indication. My problem with Chiefs is they can't tackle, except for Bolton. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They miss so many tackles or they get out of the way. Like, when Josh Allen can jump over you, you're going for his ankles. You're not really trying to take on Josh Allen,
right,
around the midsection or around his thighs anywhere. So you're sort of jumping out of the way of that. And the Chiefs have been getting the first, 4 games a year. I think they were like number 1 against the run on defense, right? They were allowing the least amount of yards per carry and whatever. And then, then the Colts drill them, and then Buffalo just drilled them. Running the football. I mean, they just run it. They're putting a fullback in there. Everybody knows what they're going to do, and they're just plowing up in there and using an offensive line and using a fullback, creating a seam for that back. And they're getting through and doing their thing. You can really expect that this week against San Francisco to happen. San Francisco's trying to get a fullback in there. They are hurting so bad. They have 19 guys on their injury report. 19. And like 10 of them aren't going to play. They're out for the season. So this is a game that the Chiefs can really get better at. But I think the defense is better. Don't like Frank Clark, what he's doing. I think Karlaftis has underachieved at this point. I think Dunlop's going to help up there. You still have Chris Jones up there, which certainly is a big plus to him. I like their linebackers. I like Harris. I think Harris has come along really well, but, Gay's coming back. But you can see where Harris can be used in the rotation more. And, Chanel, he's going to have to get up to speed. But, I think they're more physical. I think he's blitzing a little bit more. And you either live or die by that blitz. And Josh Allen made him pay blitzing this past week. So,
no,
but I agree with you. I think they're better, Kevin. I think they're much better than they were last year. How good is a much better story remains to be seen with this team. They should kill San Francisco. They should just kill them.
They should. And the line's 3 points. And last week at one point during the game, the Niners had 11 players out against the Falcons, and the Falcons scored 28 points on them. The Niners had the number 4 scoring defense going in. Then they give up 4 touchdowns to the lowly Falcons. I don't know how many of those 11 starters will be out this week, but it looks like it's going to be at least 9 of them will be out. I mean, there's such a drop-off in the NFL. We always worry about 53-man rosters and next man up and all that. If you're a good football team, it means you have really good starting players. And there should be a drop-off between that and the guy that's filling in. There should be. And I think the Niners fit into that category, and they didn't look anything like themselves last week with all those players out.
No, right. And the other thing is, if you do have those great 22 that you think, or maybe you could make it even 25 because you have the 3 special teams players, the punter, the place kicker, and the long snapper. But the deal is your salary cap, and this is what we talked about, salary cap really bleeds into this because you have a really good starting 22, you have a good 11 on both sides of the ball. You aren't going to have any money for any of those other guys, so they're going to have to be rookies or, unrestricted free agents that aren't going to cost you, or guys off the scrap heap. Look at how the Chiefs had to delve into place kickers the last few games before Butker came back. And, who's that guy? And then you go, who's that guy? Yeah. You know what I mean? Then the second that guy ends up breaking the Chiefs record, and then Butker came back and said, not so fast. I'm going to get this one back. Yeah, so
that was fantastic.
So I think that is what makes the NFL so great week to week. Look at San Francisco. They lost to Denver 11-10. 11-10. Who plays a game 11-10?
Right.
God, it's just crazy. Yeah.
All right. There's my good buddy, Frank Boal, my mentor. And if he hadn't hired me back in 1988 at Channel 4, I don't know what my life would be today. I really don't. Thank you, Frank. Appreciate you coming on a Patron podcast. It's a great listen. If you want to check that out, become a patron at kkhasissues.com. Again, it's not as easy to sign up on your phone as it is on a desktop or a laptop. So give it a go if you want to become a patron. It's much easier to do. I've heard from a lot of people, I try to do this on my phone. It's too hard. Don't try on your phone. It's possible on your phone. It is complicated and difficult. Just log on to your computer and sign up to become a patron at kkhasissues.com. All right, we'll continue with our NFL coverage. It's brought to you by Back Nine Development, online at back9development.com. TJ Vilkanskis and his team would love to build for you. They have a wonderful portfolio that I would encourage you to go to their website and check out. It's back9development.com and see what they can do for you anywhere in the Kansas City area or outerlying areas around Kansas City, including west, like Lawrence, Topeka, Manhattan. TJ is a tremendous developer and builder, and you're going to really enjoy speaking with him about what your dreams are. You can always call TJ at 785-236-0161 and check out the Grand Mere condominium complex called Solheim. That's also on there, back9development.com. Every project he does, he uses Buck Roofing for the roof. Why wouldn't he? They met each other through the podcast. Honest to goodness, they did. They're doing business with each other, and it's perfect because I know them both. They're very similar. They're a lot like all of us. They're honest. They're trustworthy. They're going to do a good job. And if something happens and it's not just right, it's going to be made perfect. That's how it works. That's the way it's supposed to work. When you decide to spend your hard-earned money with somebody that you hear about in any industry, you expect the best. And Buck Roofing is that. They'll do a free roof inspection here before winter hits and we get snow and ice. Not a bad idea. Call 913-384-2680. We've had so little rain and whatnot, but the sun pounded on this thing. We've had some high winds. I mean, it's been 6 months since anybody's thought about their roof. You might want to have somebody up there just check it out, see where you are, so you can sleep well knowing Buck Roofing fixed the roof or inspected the roof over your head. Boy, this is a tasty story from the NFL. The owners got together, and they're having their meetings, and they're voting to approve Roger Goodell getting a new contract with a sweet bonus up front. Now, Roger Goodell makes something like $40 million a year as commissioner of the NFL, and he's been there since 2006. The NFL under his tenure has turned a little too woke for me. They've given in to a little too much wokeness, and I think some of the owners see that, but they're making so much money. They're like any other board of directors. They're making so much money. The CEO's making so much money for them that they're going to keep him. That's not in question. The question here is, how do they pay him? Well, he wants a big bonus up front. Of course he does. Stock markets are down 25%. Travis Kelce just restructured his contract. Why do you think he was so amenable to that? He's getting a bonus now. Do you know how much better a bonus is now with the markets down? That you can invest your money? take that money, put it in the markets now, as opposed to waiting 6 years over the life of a contract to get that money? Well, Goodell wants the same thing. So they draw up a package that has this sweet bonus for him right up front. And the vote goes 31-1. When I read it was 31-1 approving it, I thought it would be the Washington Commanders that were against it, because we know Daniel Snyder is miffed and he's got a guy running the team by proxy, whatever. It wasn't the Commanders. It was Jerry Jones, who stood up in front of the entire group and said, this is absurd. We're not bonusing this guy and giving it up front. He needs to earn it over time. We treat him like a player, we're going to be in trouble. You don't bonus this guy up front. He's been fine at what he's done. We're offering him a huge package here. Let's prorate this money out over time. Why give it to him now up front? And he's the only voice that's talking like this. These are really, really rich guys who don't see this money as very much money. So it's an easy vote for them. But Jerry Jones is doing this on principle. It's not the money. He's like, no, he can have a bonus, but let's spread it out at least over 3 years. Make him earn it. Don't give him all this money and let him kick his feet up. I agree with Jerry Jones. That's a hardline stance. Jerry Jones doesn't care. He is the most influential owner. He swayed no votes. There was no change on the vote. 31-1 it stood. But Robert Kraft and Jerry Jones helped found DraftKings. They were investors in DraftKings when it was daily fantasy sports, because they knew gambling was coming and they'd make $1 gazillion off DraftKings. And they have. Like, these guys are buds and they're conservatives and they agree on almost everything. And apparently they got into a shouting match, and eventually Jerry Jones shouted across this big boardroom table to Robert Kraft, "Don't F with me." Shouting. Kraft stands up and says, "Excuse me?" Like, they're going to go at it. Can you imagine 32 billionaires in one room that own football teams? They work in the toy department of life. And these two guys are shouting each other down over a bonus for the commissioner. I love this story. Can you imagine how it got out? I don't know. Somebody leaked it. Probably Jerry Jones leaked it. That'd be my guess. Can you imagine the discussions these people have away from their meetings about politics and Black Lives Matter and some of the woke stuff they've done? This is still an overwhelmingly conservative ownership group in the NFL. And I just wonder what some of those discussions are like when these guys get together and start talking about bigger issues than Roger Goodell's bonus up front. College sports, huge game coming up Saturday night between K-State and TCU. I'll make you wait on that for just a moment. Big news in these parts is Big 12 Media Days for basketball here in Kansas City. And Brett Yormark is the new commissioner of the Big 12. And I don't ever remember anybody talking this big, but he is exactly what I've always called for in the Big 12. For somebody to take over as commissioner of this league and understand that you have something better than what it's perceived to be outside of here. We've seen the television ratings. The Big 12 games do just as well as every other conference. We've seen it. We know it. We know what this is. It's the best basketball league, if that matters. And it does, because that's inventory in the winter when football is over. And the networks like that. They like having that. Baylor and Kansas have led the way with their national titles the last few years. It's been a big deal for this conference. Texas Tech was in the Final Four. The league's at an all-time high in college basketball. Brett Yormark sees this, and I don't know whether he's full of it or he's really good at his job, but he is absolutely convinced that he's going to get way more money in new television rights deals for this conference than anybody thinks. He's negotiating with Oklahoma and Texas being gone and the new league being here, and he says we may have something in a few weeks or we may wait 16 months. And he's making it sound like it's going to be his decision, that he's going to make some sort of decision on what's best for the league. Should I take this money now or should I play this thing out? Here's his leverage. They're still paying for Texas and Oklahoma in this contract. They could sign a new deal and still have Texas and Oklahoma for a year or two under a new deal, and it may actually be advantageous for the networks to do that now, and then the rest of the league benefits after they're gone by splitting their part of the pie when they're gone. I don't know. I don't know all the inner workings. I just have never seen anybody so brash and brazen in my life. He just sat right there in Kansas City and said, I'm raising ticket prices. He said, we sell more tickets to the Big 12 tournament than any of these other tournaments. We're raising prices. That's supply and demand. He's coming after Kansas fans is what he's doing, because that tournament's packed every year because of KU. So I think you can go ahead and forget. I've wondered if If KU becomes ineligible for the NCAA tournament because of their NCAA problems, if that happens, I've said, would they be eligible for the Big 12 tournament? I think we can answer that. Brett Yormark wants the money. He's going to let them come play because that's how you sell all the tickets. He's going to raise ticket prices. He said he's doing new sponsorships. They're going to hire influencers. I don't know if that's the Kardashians or a Saturday Night Live comedian or what it is that they're going to do. They're going to hire influencers. They're going to start media blitzes and campaigns. He's talking like, he reminds me of the Lewicki brothers when they started the Comets, and that is a long time ago. That's way back in the 80s. But the Lewickis, who have later gone on, and one was the head of AEG, mover and shaker, they knew what they were doing. They were marketers. Some people come in and sound like great marketers and fail miserably. Some are really great at it. We will find out with Brett Yormark, but he is the talk of college athletics right now because he's walking around like he's got the big stick in college athletics when he doesn't really have the big stick yet. We'll see. Kansas State TCU is the game of the week in these parts. Saturday night, 7 o'clock, Fox Sports 1. Two ranked teams. Somebody said this is the first time K-State's played in a game where both teams are ranked in several years. I said, that doesn't sound right. K-State was 4-0 in the Big 12 2 years ago. They're 3-0 this year. They started off 4-0 2 years ago and were ranked. They've been ranked a bunch. So maybe that's the case. K-State is 17. TCU is 8. K-State is 17 because they lost to Tulane. They'd like to have that one back. If they were, they might be ranked about 6 right now. It doesn't matter. They're not a playoff team. For K-State, it's about the Big 12. Get into the title game and see if you can win a Big 12 title and get into a big, meaningful bowl. Probably the same thing for TCU. I don't think there's a playoff team in the Big 12. I don't think any of them are good enough to be playoff teams. I don't. And I think there's a lot of sameness between the top half of this league. Kansas State, TCU, Oklahoma State, Texas, Baylor. Probably your 5 best teams right there. That's probably your 5 best. Oklahoma could improve. Oklahoma could decide this race, by the way. It's good to have played Oklahoma early and get your win on them because they're going to beat some people. If you're K-State and TCU, that's all you're hoping for. So they go beat a bunch of people. K-State's got the win over Oklahoma. That's still a big deal. So that's going to help in tiebreaker situations and whatnot. This is a very, very important team. This is not the end-all, be-all game, not team. The winner of this game is not assured of being in the Big 12 title game. They obviously are the front runner to making it, and it doesn't matter whether you're the 1 or the 2 seed. You go play the game either way, and you play for it. So 2 teams are going to make it. You would think the team that wins this game Saturday night will be in the Big 12 title game because what you would believe at that point is if this team that wins goes 3-2 in their last 5, that's 7-2, and that probably gets you in. You may be in a tiebreaker jam. You may not be. You don't want to be in a tiebreaker with the team that you do want to be in a tie. If you're the team that wins this game, you'd love to be in a tiebreaker with the team you're playing. If K-State wins this, they'd love to finish 7-2 with TCU. That'd be just fine with them. You root for if you win this game, you root for that opponent to go beat everybody. Kansas State is completely healthy. Everybody that got knocked out of the Iowa State game, and it was a lot of players, and it was star players. Deuce Vaughn was knocked out. The top 2 pass rushers were knocked out. Daniel Green, their leading tackler for a while, was out of that game. I mean, they missed a lot of key players in that Iowa State game that went out to injuries. K-State had a bye week. They are all healthy and will all start this week. That is unbelievable news for Kansas State. TCU has Max Duggan at quarterback, 526 yards per game, 46 points. K-State may have the best defense in the conference. This will be an interesting battle. Duggan is battling a shoulder injury. You could see it in the game against OSU last week. He played through it. He is a warrior. He is tough. He is old. He's been around forever. I don't think he's ever beaten Kansas State. There's a lot of motivation, but it is a quarterback dealing with pain. And that's a thing. We know that's a thing. So watch for that in this game. The K-State hits on quarterback Max Duggan and how it affects his play. I think it will decide this game. I think if Kansas State is physical on Duggan, can sack him, he's going to run it too. Hit him hard when he runs it. Don't let him slide. Get to him and hit him hard. If they can knock him around by the 4th quarter of this game, I think Duggan could be worn down and really in some pain. It could make a really, really big difference. We will see. If you're in pain and you need an MRI or a CAT scan, Advanced Medical Imaging is the place to go. In Lawrence, online, medimageks.com. You don't have to wait 2 or 3 weeks for your appointment. You can get in today or tomorrow. That is a huge benefit. You get an injury, you trip and fall, you bust your knee up playing flag football or something, you need to get your MRI. Your doctor says, call this place. You're in a hospital chain. They're going to get you in sometime in November, and you're like, ugh. No. MedImageKS.com. They accept all major insurance, and they have the heart scan, which I did and Jessica did, to get your plaque score. If you're over 40, find out what's going on inside your chest, your torso. They see all your organs. See what's inside for under $100. Go do this if you're over 40. Get the heart scan. They'll see all your organs in your chest, and they'll give you a plaque score on your heart for under $100. See what's inside. Advanced medical imaging online at MedImageKS.com. Again, all the sponsors, if you don't remember the names, they're at the KK List. TheKKList.com. TheKKList.com. Go there anytime you're looking for one of these great conservative businesses and sponsors like Advantage Termite and Pest Control, the only pest control company I've ever used. That's all you need to know. And they're on the site as well, the KK List. You can find them on their own website, AdvantageTPC.com. If you go to the KK List, you just click right on it. It takes you right to their website. The best way to go to any of our sponsors is go to the KKList.com. TheKKList.com. You'll find great companies like Advantage. They are amazing at what they do. Baseball's American and National League Championship Series are underway. The Astros went up 1-0 on the Yankees on Wednesday night. Solid pitching by the Astros and a couple of solo home runs made the difference. Phillies and Padres had a wild game. The Phillies got out to a big lead and were up 1-0 already in the series. And you're like, wow, this series could be over quickly. Padres come back and win at 8-5, tie the series at 1-1 as it goes back to Philadelphia. Philadelphia looks better than the Padres to me. They just do. They look like they got something special going this year. Can't tell you what it is. You just watch them play, and you're like, there's a team that wants it more. They're clicking more. They're whatever. We'll see what happens back in Philly, where the fans are insane. I've never, ever, ever seen baseball fans wilder than the Phillies fans this year. Ever. It's crazy. I know you're probably not watching a lot of baseball, but as the National League Series shifts back to Philadelphia, check out a couple of those games and watch what it's like in that stadium in Philadelphia as the Phillies are playing the Padres. It's really, really good stuff. Okay, another reminder, if you join up as a patron, we'll get you your Thursday night pick for football tonight. Lee Sterling is now 5-2 on the season for patrons. So if you signed up as a patron at the start of the year and you bet $10, $20 a game on his games, you've paid for your patron program for the whole year. He's 5-2 on the year on Thursday nights. Last week he played Central Florida. He didn't play the NFL game. He played Central Florida. They scored 70. He came on and said, the team they're playing, their defenses was at Temple. He said, oh, my God, that's just the worst defense you've ever seen. Central Florida is going to go up and down. I think they were a 23-point favorite. And he said, they're going to go up and down the field. They scored 70. The thing was, it was like 31-0 in the second quarter. I'm like, well, I think Lee's got this one. Really good stuff. And also, you can listen to him with the picks on Friday. Those are free by listening on the regular podcast, but they may or may not be part of his service. When he gives this patron pick every Thursday night, it's part of his service. It's his game of the day. And he's on it. So go get signed up at kkhasissues.com or find a friend, tell him about the podcast, tell him to listen, show him how, have them subscribe, like, follow, whatever the button may be on your particular device. We were up to 23,000 daily subscribers, followers, which is great. I would love to, my dream has always been 50,000. I think when we get to 50,000 people following the podcast, we will have more people listening to this than the radio stations. I believe that. Let's double the number. If we can double the number, I think more people will be listening to this podcast than the AM radio station. We're getting close now, I think, the way it is. So, pretty cool stuff. Thank you very much, and have a great, great conservative American Patriot Day.
Thanks for listening to Kevin Keatsman Has Issues, presented by Roberts Robinson Chevrolet Buick GMC. To get exclusive patrons-only podcasts, receive a weekly newsletter, and attend in-person patrons-only parties, visit KKHasIssues.com and become a patron today. This has been a production of Crooked Tail Media Incorporated.